Welcome, everyone, to Vision Untethered. My name is Jill Simons, founder and CEO of Savvy Strategic Partners. We are a full service, dedicated leadership team executing vision, increasing business value, and helping founder owners realize freedom. Today, we welcome an amazing guest and friend of mine to Vision Untethered. We are diving into the power of systems and scaling with a visionary who has transformed how businesses operate and grow. Our guest is Jon Loduca, founder of Playbook Builder, a revolutionary platform that helps businesses capture, scale, and optimize their processes through step-by-step playbooks. Playbook Builder is empowering leaders to streamline the operations, build high-performing teams, and turn knowledge into action. Get ready for some game-changing insights into leadership, growth, and the art of building scalable success. Thank you so much, Jon, for being here. I'm so
My
excited.
pleasure. Me too. That sounded really nice. Thanks for running through that. Yeah,
I'm
you're
like, I have to
hired.
shore you up really well.
You
Yeah, we're
did.
selling
Yeah,
it.
I like that.
I mean it, every word. It's true. Yeah. So, first and foremost, what is your purpose and passion?
To unleash entrepreneurs, to let them have full, complete control over who and what they are, and to unleash all of their wisdom and their passion in a capacity that doesn't eat their lives apart.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of entrepreneurism and have been working with entrepreneurs since '02 and have a big
Yeah,
heart for that space in the world. Absolutely. It's the wheel that turns the economy.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, I'm glad we're talking because unleashing and untethering,
yeah,
however we want to frame
yeah,
it, right,
totally.
is
Right over the target.
exactly what,
You bet.
yeah, is
Yeah,
exactly what both of us are so fueled by,
yeah,
and personally tied to, personally like invested in. So
yeah.
yeah. So what are some key signs for you, and that you see working with visionary founders that they are too tethered to their business,
Mhm.
and how does that impact the company's ability to innovate and to grow?
Ooh, it's a good question and an important one. You're a good example of this. And it breaks my heart when this happens to entrepreneurs. You were an A student, weren't you? You tried really hard. And when you turned in your homework and you did a really good job, you got a little sticker on your homework from your fourth grade teacher, and it felt really good. And
Yep.
um, interestingly, that paradigm of trying your hardest, doing your best, and putting in all of the effort, it's actually a real trap for entrepreneurs. And when you add to it trying to like feed your kid organic food every morning for every meal and packing their little lunches and making all their birthdays perfect, like I know exactly who you are. And I think that this applies to a
Yep.
lot of people like you. Really,
Hmm.
really high standards, an
Yep.
incredible amount of work ethic, and you end up becoming kind of a patsy to your business accidentally. Like the
Hmm.
construct is, and I think it's because when you go to school, they're getting you ready for work, like an industrial era model
Yeah.
designed to get you ready to be somebody else's employee, which means try your hardest, do your best, give it your all the time, accept nothing but the best. And all of a sudden, one day you realize no one's going to tell me it's okay to back it off a little bit.
Right.
And so you wind up
Yeah.
going, how in the hell did I find myself in this spot where it's like that I Love Lucy episode where the chocolates keep coming down the conveyor belt and she's just like, what the hell? No matter how many emails I send, they keep sending me more. No matter
Yeah.
how many clients we take on, we always need more. No matter how many pep talks I give the team, I keep needing to give more. And what's fascinating is, you know who kills it in business? The C students do. Lazy people do. And
Yeah.
it's an absolute like mind bending reality. But there's something you'd find interesting probably. It's called
Gosh.
The Manstein paradox. I think the Manstein
Mm-hmm.
paradox. And
Mm-hmm.
it's these four quadrants of characteristics: diligence, like hard work, intelligence, and then their corollaries, which would be
Yeah.
laziness and stupidity. And do you know who always makes a really great number two or middle manager? Really intelligent people who are really diligent.
Mm-hmm.
They're awesome because they don't know when to quit and they'll just give it their all. But the leader in the organization, high intelligence, lazy.
Mm. Yeah.
Lazy because they're looking for loopholes and
Yeah.
shortcuts and economies of scale. Just like
Hmm.
they have a lot in common with criminals, actually. Like really successful entrepreneurs
Yeah.
have the same pathology. They're like, where can I find an angle over here? And
Right.
so what you kind of get frustrated by is what is that little creep who used to be running around in the back of the classroom doing his homework, in a wadded up mess, half filled in, borrowing your homework probably because he didn't turn his in on time and needed to get a passing grade. That kid ends
Hmm.
up being a really extraordinary entrepreneur,
Yeah.
interestingly, because if he can match his intelligence with the group of people who he can attract, all those A students who came out of school ready to work,
Right.
oh, they'll
Yeah.
definitely look out for all of his shortcomings and he can exploit loopholes and gaps in the marketplace to make a killing. So what I have seen is business owners who are just threadbare, exhausted, made a deal somehow with the devil that if they tried their hardest and did their best, they'd get a passing grade and it would be like, oh, I'm good, I'm safe. And actually, it
Hmm.
doesn't work that way.
No.
It doesn't work that
It's
way. So, you can
yeah.
tell how I feel about it. I recognize you.
Yeah.
You're like the best person in the world, and the whole economy needs you, and you're so giving and diligent and hardworking and honest, and you'd give everything to your clients to make their lives better. You're like so many
Yeah.
entrepreneurs that I work with, and it's so
Hmm.
frustrating sometimes when you're like, hey, wait a minute, and you figured this out. Like we've had these conversations, like like,
Yeah.
yeah, I gotta find another way to leverage my time, leverage my know-how, and
Right.
that's where those breakthroughs come in. Otherwise, you're
Mm.
trading time for money and you wind up
Exactly.
toast. Absolutely. Not just tethered, but like shredded by a business that eats all the time, constantly.
Right.
Need more from you. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you nailed it, right? In terms of, of course. Um, so there's elements of that in what you said that I want to dive into in terms of that kind of upbringing and how
Yeah.
that shapes the mindset of those that
Yeah.
become successful later on.
Yeah.
How do we shake that, right? I've got an internal question, a primal question in myself that I'm constantly trying to answer because that was the exact environment. If I get A's, if I do really good at this, if I show that I can work hard,
Huh.
I can show my talent, I can be accepted, I
Yeah.
can be seen as
Yeah.
good enough.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't the
my
universe
question,
have some justice? Can I like get the
do
cookie
I
for
get it?
killing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I get
Yeah.
something other than the sticker? Like, are you going to tell
Yeah.
me what I
Yeah.
do now?
Yeah.
Like, I was literally just journaling about this morning, so it's timely.
Mm.
The fact that we're waiting on this accolade, we're waiting on this acceptance externally in those situations and waiting for somebody else to see not only am I hardworking and I'm smart and I can get the A, but there's so much beneath that I think we harbor and we hide because we're unsure if we're good enough still because we're
I know.
constantly waiting for this. Yeah, you're good enough to do that actually. You're accepted. So how do we break free from that head trash? Like how have you or how, and entrepreneurs you see break free from that
Well,
those
I was
lies?
lucky because I didn't have a choice. I'm not as excellent a person as you are. Like, I finally figured out in my 40s that if I put my keys in the dish every night, I'd find them in the morning. But you can
Mm,
imagine, like, I was a liability for everyone who's ever loved me. I didn't have a choice but to get creative because I was that ADD
mm,
C student in the back of the class, high
mm.
IQ, itty bitty attention span. And I had to find ways to work with my own handicaps, but I never suffered from your problem. And I envy
Yeah.
yours. I was so jealous
Mm,
and so just like, oh, I wish I could be good and turn it in and follow the system and get the grade
mm.
or get the thing. And a lot of entrepreneurs that I've worked with have fallen into those two buckets
Yeah.
where either they are self-deprecating because they don't fit into a convenient, sanctioned societal bucket. They weren't good
Yeah.
kids. They weren't good students. They're in trouble. Or they were, and they're like, hey, this is not fair. I did everything right. Like, where's the
Yeah.
justice in this? And so the two paradigms I've seen for entrepreneurs both can be very destructive. So when you talk about untethered, I talk about unleashed, right? And unleashed to
Mhm.
me is full acceptance of you being a weirdo and just
Yeah.
kind of rolling with that. But at some point, telling the truth about the situation is the most productive thing. It's really a relationship with time. And I'm becoming
Mm.
more and more preoccupied with this. There's a
Yeah.
fantastic book called 4,000 Weeks that I had been reading, and I've now read it like twice.
Okay.
It's one of those books I'm starting to give to people. I'll make sure you get one
Mm.
because I think he's interesting. The
Me too.
constructs of time in the West are
Yeah.
really where he goes. It's not time management like turn off your email, like, oh, that's a great, breakthrough idea. He's actually asking the question of what's your relationship with time? Do you have a I'll do a deal with the devil relationship with time? I'll work really hard, I'll do 1,000 emails, and then I should expect to get a cookie, which is some free
Hmm.
time. It doesn't actually, that paradigm doesn't work. The bad students, the C students who become very successful, they sort of escape out of that reciprocity model of do a lot
Yeah.
of work and then earn free time. Whereas they build sort of in the frontiers, they build businesses that can sometimes be bullies to other employees. And so
Yep.
their issue is that working with others. So as a visionary, who's kind of the
Hmm.
wild, I like kind of I'm more of the archetype of that crazy visionary. My biggest danger is I put so much on the team, I don't even know that I'm doing it because I don't
Hmm.
realize the bounds of those requests. Like, can you do me a favor? Can you go to the North Pole and get me some ice? And then, it's like, that's really kind of a big deal. And I didn't even
Hmm.
stop to ask to what extent.
Mm.
The issue with the A student entrepreneur is that they become the bottleneck, the single point of failure for the whole business.
Yeah.
What got them to success in the early stages of the business, being highly diligent, responsible, working really hard, having super high standards, it just stops. They've reached the vertical limit of their human ability to maintain that at scale. And they just
Hmm.
need to do a knowledge transfer to others. They need to delegate and they need to embrace laziness as a choice. Like
Mm.
Dan Sullivan is a genius, and Strategic Coach is a program I
Yeah.
recommend universally, right?
Yes.
The very
Yes.
first thing Dan teaches, and he says this, like I'm old, so I got a CD when I joined Coach because they gave you CDs. I even have cassettes, to be honest with you. Not 8 tracks, but I did get cassettes. And one
Yeah.
of the DVDs or CDs rather that you get as a very first one, there's an interview with
Mm.
Dan. He's like, what makes people the most successful in the strategic coach program? You're going to plunk down a check, go to these, workshops. What's the
Yeah.
single biggest impact? And he talks about taking free days.
Yep.
It's a self-imposed
Right.
laziness. And he
Yeah.
understands that the relationship with time is really up in our head. And if we don't get a mastery of that and take full advantage, it's not about whether or not you'll get all the work done. There is no such thing. It's just your
Hmm.
relationship to the satisfaction of it all will
Yeah.
shape around your ability to balance and have downtime or have creative time or have family time
Exactly.
or whatever your jam is. But if you try to work like an industrial automaton, like a robot, you will explode. And I see really strong people. You know how alcoholics, you can't really be an alcoholic unless you have a really good constitution.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
like I could never be an alcoholic because I'm a wimp. Like 5, 6 drinks in, I get drunk one night and I'm like, I'm never doing that again. And I
Yeah.
did it. Right.
Right.
Alcoholics are like tough and they can like do that a lot until they build up a habit. I
Yeah.
see the most remarkable women, so strong, high pain tolerance, tons and tons of diligence. And they're like, I can't figure this out. I keep pulling the same lever of hard work and high standards. It's not working. So they
Yeah.
end up kind of breaking. And
Yep.
that break kind of shows up sometimes where either they end up bringing in a partner who can take off a load, or they
Hmm.
end up with a paradigm shift in their relationship to work, or they're really literally on the couch talking to an expert like a therapist because
Yeah.
they feel trapped and they've been betrayed by a system that was really
Yeah.
just teaching them how to be a worker on somebody else's dime. They end up with a boss that's an absolute bitch.
Mm.
She's
Hmm.
crazy and she has no sense of boundaries and she makes her work all the time. It's herself.
Yep.
It's herself in this deal with the
Slave
devil.
to yourself.
Dude,
Exactly.
it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard to see it because I know that the sense of betrayal that creates bitterness. Like I'm playing the game, I push
Yep.
the button, I was told to do this and it isn't working, and I was told it
Yeah.
for, you
Yeah.
know, and I've been duped. And so a
Hmm.
creative escape is really about time management, I believe. And
Yeah.
so
And
Playbook
not
Builder,
even managing it, but also like how much we value it, right? At what
totally.
value do we hold our time? And if we're exchanging time for money,
Yeah,
then that's a quick road to burnout. I've
yeah.
a lot of my frustration as a business owner, working with clients, and obviously going above and beyond, right? They are my number one priority. And I'm a natural empath, right? So hand in hand, that is destructive because
Ah, yes, totally.
their
Great.
problems, their
Yes.
emotion, what they're
Take it
going
all
through,
on.
I'll
Yeah.
just wear that. Yeah, just
I know.
give
It
it all to
makes you
me.
amazing. I mean, think of like anybody lucky enough to hire you, what they would end up with. They'd end up with somebody that cares about the business as much as they do, who brings
Yep.
this extraordinary skill set, dedication,
Yeah.
diligence, hard work, high standards, and a cheery face, and all the smiles and all the feels. And then you're over there going, "Wow, there's
I'm
no way I could charge
I'm
enough for that."
yeah, I'm just like over in the corner in a fetal position and they don't even know. I mean, they
Yeah.
will say as well, yeah, they've even said that. I've never had somebody care about my business as much as you do, and treat it
Yeah.
like it's your baby. And
Yeah.
so I can't help but to wear it and to take it.
I
But
know.
this paradigm shift, this value of time is so huge for every entrepreneur to understand there and to put a value and put a number on that. The book you're talking about talks a lot about this, but also I was blown away when I went through 10x is easier than 2x, which is concepts of Dan Sullivan's teachings and his perspective with
Yep.
Benjamin Hardy.
Yep.
And the first thing I did was buy the workbook because I needed the structure, right?
Yep.
I needed the structure in my life because yeah, I would say time is my most precious asset. And when I'm feeling the most tethered and pulled, burnt out, or resentful,
Resentful.
I'm
Mhm.
thinking about my time. Think of how much time I spent today on this, or
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
this is what my
Yeah.
plan was supposed to be for the day.
Right. I'm an
And
entrepreneur. Why am I stuck working
what am
like
I
worst
doing?
employee? Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
here, when I find myself in those states, I go back to that. The first thing I did was create a schedule. And this is one of the first things we do in coaching other entrepreneurs that we work with as teams, whether it's a CFO on the team, a CMO, is you've got to protect this schedule. You've got to protect your day. And if you're not creating that space and protection of how your time is spent,
Yeah.
then you're on this quick path to burnout. So I
That's
designed
it.
my schedule. And now having shared that with several other visionaries, it's so simple, but it's not so much like, oh yeah, turn your email off and build a schedule. It is literally planning your entire week, each of your days around what it is you're doing with the time you need to spend on yourself, and however that looks, everything else revolves around that day. That was like game changing. So
That's outstanding. Yeah, if we have to talk about that a little bit. And my
yeah.
relationship to it is I say things that you're not supposed to say out loud, like don't try so hard. Do the
Yeah.
least amount you can
Uh-huh.
to the highest yield. What would that look like? What's just the active ingredient? Like I know you can do more. You can always do more. How many emails does it take to screw
Yeah.
in a day of success? Like, would anyone die? I always ask myself that question. I'm not a doctor. Would
Yeah.
anyone die if I don't get back to this email? Is it worth missing my daughter playing soccer and maybe getting a goal? She's pretty lousy at soccer, so chances are low, but if it happens, I have to be there.
Yeah, you can't
Yeah.
miss that then. Like you
No.
cannot miss
But
that. That
thank
is
God I got another email out. Like we have to
right?
impose boundaries on ourselves. But one of
Totally.
the things that creates a lot of creativity is bounding time, like with like a fierceness. It imposes a creativity. When I was introduced to free focus and buffer days, and this isn't like a Dan Sullivan commercial, but it can be. I mean, I'm a fan and I believe he's a genius, and so he
Yeah.
deserves the credit. One of the things that I learned was free days kind of say, okay, take your right hand and tie it behind your back. You go,
Mhm.
well, crap, I can't work as much as I'd like to or as fast. Well, what
Mhm.
kind of creative solutions would you need to adopt in the event that you lost that ability? If you lose a limb, or you take a day out of the calendar, what would have to have happened for you to continue to be productive? Oh, I'd have to delegate. So my business was intellectual capital development. I was doing helping entrepreneurs do knowledge transfers. They'd reached the
Mhm.
vertical ceiling of that model of trading time for money, and there just was no more time. And so they needed to
Mhm.
get creative about scaling their business. And it wasn't because scale sounds sexy, it was the desperation of, good God, I've reached the limit here.
Yeah.
So Sullivan's idea of tying your hand behind your back, taking a day off the calendar, imposes on you a necessity to delegate. to
Yeah.
then find the gaps in the delegation, both in terms of the quality of the person you hire and also the information that you
Mm-hmm.
provide to them. And so that's where I went with my career,
Mm.
unwittingly, kind of 20 years later, realizing the whole thing was sneaky time management. The whole thing was a genius way to avoid the
Yeah.
limitations of there are market limitations for what you can charge. I mean, it's clever to say, well, increase your fees, and that's true. You could do that, or find other monetization strategies, and you can do that. You can find little side hustles with your own
Sure.
clientele, or build
Yep.
deeper levels of support for them and things like that. But they all come at a cost. Increased
Mm-hmm.
overhead, complexity, all those
Mm-hmm.
things are not so tasty. And yet you
Yeah.
can do them. But obviously, just simply knowing what you're doing, having to become conscious competent, like really attentive to it, intensely so. What are the levers I pull to get the outcomes I do? And then giving that to somebody else so they can take a client or two. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, it's like this huge freedom. And weirdly, end of the rainbow, the business is worth something. It's an asset. Like these
Yeah.
poor people are trying to sell their businesses. And it's like, yeah, everything works when I'm around. It's not much to sell
There's
unless you're
no
staying.
value there.
Unless
Yeah.
you're staying, baby.
You're
It's not worth that much.
there. We're
And
not going
so
anywhere.
it's got to
Yeah.
become almost like a product. And so I
Mm-hmm.
bumped into that world of time management, backing into it from trying to help businesses to scale. And so
Yeah.
here I am, in my 50s, realizing the treacherous place my clients were in when I met them
Mm-hmm.
and how much freedom that created without me even understanding the levers that I was pulling. It actually created freedom for them to work on the business or just to not
Yeah.
be there at all. And it's a beautiful thing because we are all dying. It's not
Yeah.
like a wisecrack. You do
Right.
reach a place where you start to see you're glimpsing mortality and you say, is this it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got all the lunches on time. You did it. No kid goes to school with a patch on their jeans or a tennis racket. It isn't the best tennis racket you can get them. That's true. But I'm starting to be on the side where
Mm.
parents are empty nesters and they're like, ooh, that's a
Yeah.
whole big need that I don't have to fill
Right.
anymore. And I'm wondering now, what did I do with all that time for
Mm.
me or for
Yeah.
other aspects of my life now that that's not needed? Maybe you did a great job. You won't regret it. I don't think I would. But on the other hand, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
sacrificing time because the business
Yep.
is eating me alive,
Exactly.
oh, it's terrifying. But moreover, and this is the dangerous thing, business owners with their heads down like that are very vulnerable.
Mm.
And we don't live in a
Totally.
time where, the pace of change is leisurely.
No.
And so if you don't have your head up
Yep.
like an animal out in the
Constantly.
Serengeti, yeah, you got to be looking for predators because there's just big stuff going on.
Mm.
COVID really slaughtered those companies that were on their
Totally.
heels. But
Yep.
everybody that was like, in motion and kind of had some game, they did fine. They were able to pivot. But boy, when you see these people and, you can imagine the dynamic. Someone who's got a great big heart, they give their all, but they're like the walking wounded. They attract other business owners like that. And it becomes like a culture of
Yeah.
these folks. They are like reinforcing these bad habits. Well, I'll get you the email in an
Mm.
hour. Well, I'll reply in 5 minutes. And all of a sudden, even a clientele can all be harmonizing around this insanity.
Yeah.
They're all very vulnerable to big market
Totally.
swings,
Yep.
economic stuff. Wouldn't you want to have the time to just be thinking about your business, like,
Right.
a lot and be
Mm-hmm.
investing in hedges against, of course you would. But
Right.
these issues make the business really vulnerable and a drag, like just in the day to day, just a pain in the ass. Like there's no
Mm-hmm.
bandwidth, and so little things piss you off. And we talk about unleashing them. It's like that's
Yeah.
the opposite. That's being really
Exactly.
enslaved by the business, lashed to it, really having it boss you around and be mean to you. It's just the
Mm-hmm.
opposite of what we signed up for as entrepreneurs. Yeah,
Exactly.
I know I'm
That
talking about, stuff that's tender for
no, it's
both of us
help.
because we own
Yeah.
businesses. Yeah,
It is. It strikes a chord. It's deep.
tell me about
And
your
it's
schedule. I want to know. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'd love to
yeah, yeah.
how you saw that. Just unpack that a bit for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love how you paint the picture of this being like a long-term game, right? What we do right now
You betcha.
sets us up for that 10x, right? Who am I? And that realization of my 10x self was how I'm spending my time differently. It truly was looking back on things from a bigger standpoint picture of a legacy and a life that is a life I want to live and a life that I'm proud of, a life that I'm, excuse me, proud to model as an example
Yeah.
to 3 kids to the
Yeah.
entrepreneurs I work with. I have to be that as an example. So
Yeah.
how can I coach others?
A lot of little
Yeah.
girls don't want to be mommies because they're like, that sucks. I'm not doing that. Yeah. What a
Yeah.
shame. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
exactly.
You
And
do have to
like
work at that. Good for you.
yeah. So it really was reverse engineering that from what future self looks like in terms of how I'm spending time. And if I can't do that now,
I love that, Jill.
what foundation are we building in a business that
Yeah.
I can't step away for a day, that I can't turn it off for a single day? That's not a business anyone wants to run. So that
Right.
framework and the value of time and reverse engineering how you build your schedule now, it has to start now because it's only going to be a faster runaway train years down the road.
Yeah. Well said.
So
You bet.
yeah. Yeah. So it's typically Fridays, and now I fill it sometimes with podcasts because
Yeah.
everyone's in a good mood on Fridays. I want to talk to people on Fridays. So I do
Friday vibe.
podcasts,
Yeah.
but
That's smart.
yeah, that's when we record. But I'm finding in the days where I allow those boundaries to slip a little bit when we allow ourselves to be pulled back in because we do need to go above and beyond, or we are helping first, and we will do everything. It's a slippery slope, and
Dude.
then
And isn't it
I
so crazy what social approval there is for being selfless? No
yeah
one will say to you, hey, you need to not email me so fast. I have had one person, one client in my tenure, and I mean, I've been around doing this stuff for a long while.
yeah
John Gallego. I got back to
okay
him like the day after my son was born, and he was like, what? He ripped me wide open. And it
hmm
was the best brotherhood vibe. I mean, it was not, he was like,
yeah,
what in the world are you
all out
doing
of
replying
love.
emails? Absolutely. He was like, you need to get your head back in the game, mister. I was like, golly, you're right. Like, what am I doing? But I had a
hmm
misspent sense of duty. I'm a
yeah
husband and a provider, and I thought I was being responsible. It is
yeah
treacherous, this stuff. I keep
yeah
pounding on it, but it is so
it
interesting how we've
is
been socially conditioned to do it. And
yeah
everyone's like, you're such a hard worker. And oh, aren't you? Don't you have a lot of drive? And it's like, man, we just get sucked right into
yeah
somebody else's game plan. And there is no
yep
sticker. You don't get a sticker. It turns out after fourth grade, they don't give those out anymore, and it doesn't matter. So you're stuck with, oh, I just
yeah
worked my tail off and I could have done a little bit less. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. To me,
Yeah.
something resonated in this too, and all this inner work in this that I've been doing. I think everybody, needs that deep reflection into those wounds within us that keep us tethered. And part of mine is this whole lie of like not being good enough. Nothing's ever enough. You're not enough. And something dawned on me recently that's seeing the difference between working hard and doing hard work. There's a difference,
I know
right?
you're there. Yes. I'd like
Working
to hear you
hard.
unpack it. Go.
Yeah. So if we pride ourselves so much on, oh, I'm a hard worker. I work hard. I respond to that email right away. I am there as if I never turn it off. You won't ever know that I just had a baby, that I just, put our dog down. You would never, I've never taken a sick day. Like that was
Dude.
like a badge for a long time. I will always be there and reliable, dependable. I work hard. And now getting more into my whole foundation is helping other entrepreneurs scale. And a lot of that is the prioritization of what is most important, what is the highest priority, helping prioritize because we're all over the place. We're doing it, all these things are happening simultaneously, and they have to. That's how a business isn't a linear growth thing. Oh, if we do this, then we'll work on this thing, and then we'll be here, right? It is all mired together. So being able to parse it down and prioritize it means we're doing the hard work. And if my time is the value, if our time is most prized
Yeah.
on what we're spending it on,
Yeah.
we have to be extremely meticulous about doing the hard work. So that is where things are now and what I want to empower visionaries to understand and to know how to do. Because you're a slave, you are so burnt out. You're physically ill. Your body is physically
Oh yeah.
ill.
You don't get to get sick though.
Yeah, but you can't be sick. So you're
Not
sick
allowed.
today,
Yeah.
but all
Suck it
of
up,
this still
buttercup.
needs you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm.
I'm living that
Yep.
with our clients. Like so many of them that we're like, just take a day, like it's
No.
okay, but
Nobody
they
signed up for
can't.
that. Nobody said
No.
lying on their couch at 22, I can't wait to be an entrepreneur so I can do that. Yeah, all
So
those
I can
promises of like
complete.
time freedom and wealth and like I'd have a
Yeah.
boat and I would be, every Friday I would get like
No.
it can be that way. And
They don't know they're signing up for. Yeah.
well, what's
That's not
interesting
it.
is, like I said, I mean, it's the opposite of what they were taught. And that is a
Hmm.
very hard lesson to break. I was taught it, you were taught it. We kind of get lumped into it. The social approval makes it easy. And you
Yeah.
just get like an attaboy from your peers who are also crazy. Yes, aren't you tough? Good for you.
Yep.
But yeah, breaking out of that is I'm delighted to hear that's something you're taking on. We are also in the
Hmm.
same arena because ultimately the work that I do ends up being we bump into it. We don't directly
Mm.
attack it, and neither do
Right.
you, but it's always the elephant in the room, right? It's always like just a couple of conversations away, and we're actually getting down to why can't
Mm.
this person apportion time to do something so desperately needed?
Yeah.
You see the snarky, funny stuff I put on, social media on LinkedIn in particular. I'm like, you've
I
got to
love
pull the
it.
car over. We're going to be talking about this next quarter. Here we go again. Another good excuse why you can't get after it. But you got to be diligent. We don't want to let a client down. What if I
Hmm.
was talking to Mary Tatimas. She's an
Hmm.
EOS implementer in the community, and I
Hmm.
love her. She's super bright. And she
Yeah.
was telling me, she said she was talking to somebody, and they were entertaining the idea of what would it be like to just be like average? What if we just didn't try so hard? And you're never going to
Right?
have that conversation. Like nobody would ever say that. We're always trying to be best and I would never want to be in a group of people who want to be mediocre, right? So I would always want to talk to the people who want to be best. But there's a really compelling idea around
Hmm.
what's the worst that would happen, really, especially if you're neglecting your own business to do what? Like, what are we taking care of at our own peril? I had a kind of a crisis
Hmm.
with my business many years ago, and I
Hmm.
realized I was so busy taking care of others. It's not rocket science what I bumped into, but I was
Yeah.
so busy being excellent, I realized I was at a deficit of time to look out for the business, and I was in real peril. And I thought, I'm a $20,000 a day strategy consultant for the top 1/4% income earners. I'm
Hmm.
still hosed because I'm busy. And being busy was worse. I couldn't
Yeah.
fix problems. I couldn't get after solutions. There was no ideation time. I'm
Yeah.
trying, not trying, but occasionally I bump into this fabulous book. It's called The Road Less Stupid. Have you heard of Keith
It's
Cunningham?
my favorite. That
I
is
love that
my
book.
favorite book.
Okay.
It is
I
on my
love that book.
bookshelf right
It's
here.
right over there. So it's
Yes.
kind of my thinking time
Yeah.
book. And he
Yep.
literally has to teach you how to think
Thinking
because
time.
none of
Yeah.
us know how to
Spend
do
the
it.
time to
Yep.
think. Like
None of us know
just
how to do it.
stop.
Our little brains are
Yeah.
busy and we're trying to solve
Yeah.
problems all the time. And there's chatter and inconvenience and
Clarity. Like
da,
just
da, da,
sitting in
da.
clarity to
It's
think
one
the
of the best
value.
chapters in a book ever.
Hmm.
He literally has to break it down like we're third graders. Here's how you do it.
Like, oh,
Sit in a
this is how
chair.
you think.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sit
cover
in a
your eyes so you
chair.
can't see stuff. I mean, it's hysterical. And I'm doing it like, okay, yes, because
I'm
I
like,
can't
okay, what's the
actually
next
think.
step? All right,
It's
highlight that
appalling.
one.
Yeah. The velocity of life, especially in a sort of
Hmm.
turbocharged AI-driven world, it's
Yeah,
insidious, but AI is going to continue to kind of notch up the thing. And
totally.
yeah, it's insidious. I had written a blog, geez, Louise, a long time ago, and it was like I had George Washington, a photo of George Washington. I was saying how leaders sleep in tents. Like they don't sleep in foxholes with the soldiers. George
Hmm.
Washington rode a horse. He didn't run around. He rode a horse. He slept in a tent. Why is that? Because only
Hmm.
the leader puts other people in harm's way in that particular way that leaders do. Of course, the leader should have a good meal, a night's sleep, and be able to see the field of battle. It wasn't about status and convenience. It was a little bit, but mostly it was because
Yeah.
the charge of the leader is very different than everyone else's. I make a boo-boo, and some kid, little kid that's a son or a daughter of one of the people on my team may not get to go to college. That
Hmm.
means I have to treat myself really well. It's a hard habit to do. Taking
Yeah.
time to think, It's not like it's a luxury item. Yeah. I think
I
2020
know.
was like such a neat opportunity for people to think about their
Yeah.
businesses that they blew up. Many people are like, I'm out, or I
Yep.
quit, or I'm changing my life, or I'm moving home, or whatever. But they really got a chance to finally just go take stock for a minute. Is untethered.
And
I mean, what you're doing with this is such a neat, it's a neat voice you have, first and foremost. And I love that you're so
thank you.
authentic and stuff. Yeah, it's really cool. Are you kind of that COVID break for people? Is that what this podcast kind of does? Is that where you're aiming? Because it's such a neat
I
opportunity
mean,
for folks.
it is. Yeah. I mean, there's an element of that. I think whether it's that particular moment in our time or just in general,
In
the
general.
ine- the inevitable, right?
Yeah,
It is never going to be under control. This is that's life, right? We're not ever in control. And so that's a saboteur for so many of us to think like, oh, once I do it. I do this all the time. Like I see this vision of this smooth coasting like, and I'm like, what am I, this is an
right.
illusion. That is an
Yeah,
illusion,
yeah,
right? So it's not, you can have good days and we can be in a really good momentum. We can have days that are a little quieter and we can protect our time and all those boundaries and all those things. Yes. But the inevitable is that the obstacles are exactly what shape the trajectory of us as individuals, as our business, how we get back up is what matters. So whether they, crumbled, whether they got back up in those moments, just showcase in the start of a pandemic, it's going to be the next thing. Like whether it's that,
yes, it'll be something else.
there's
Yep.
always something. Like, and I think we can blame and we can give excuses as to like, oh, well, once we get past this election, once we get past this war, once we get past, all the
Yeah.
global warming, once this is right, it's never over. So to me, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's those pinpointed moments, but we have to embrace those as like how we continually evolve, teach our teams to evolve, teach and instill that knowledge to be able to innovate collectively together. We're stronger together. The teams we form, what we do, and whether it's crisis or whether it's something small, is how we not only survive, like it's not even a survival, it's like how can we come out better? How can we come out stronger in this? And it can't just be me. Like we're not just alone. No one is alone. And the more we think like we're the smartest person in the room to solve this problem, and the rest of your team looks at you like we're waiting for you
That's right.
to tell us,
Yeah.
then we're not getting anywhere. So, yeah, the untethering is not only this like unleashing what's holding us back individually, but how we model that as a way to then say, I'm unleashing myself because I trust you, and I trust this team, and I trust that together there's something greater beyond myself.
Mm.
And until we instill that and see that, then we're in survival. Then we're tethered by whatever's happening to us as
You're kind
in
of tapping
reaction.
into something with that remark, if I could dive in. Just a sense of isolation is part of this, and that
Yeah.
that gets compounded with hard work and being busy. It that is such a tragedy because I've seen so many times where teams were sort of on the sidelines, like whenever you're done flapping your arms and being a whirlwind, we'd love to
Yeah.
help and dive in. And that inability to articulate where help is needed or to tap into the collective wisdom of a team. It's a shame. I think many times teams just can't wait to put the red cape on and help. They just don't know where and
Totally.
how because the leader's not
Totally.
clear. Yeah. Yeah. That's a real
Well, and
danger.
here's, I think,
Overtaxed leader.
yeah. Do you think that staying busy or looking busy is kind of a tendency of lazy individuals? Can you be lazy and like sound and look busy? Like you're working hard, right? Because you're so busy.
Oh, it's a way for folks to hide out. Absolutely. Folks can
It's
hide
easy
out.
to stay busy.
They can
Yeah,
kind
like,
of
oh,
disguise
I'm
their
just,
neurosis or
yeah.
delay kind of really looking at the circumstances of their business or their lives. Just, this parable of, or not parable, but really this fallacy of we're one more client away, or, it's being locked into the little hamster wheel, and it's a trap, and it's a mental
Yeah.
excuse. But you'll also see behavior that's aberrant in other ways when someone's overtaxed. They're on social media. People will find an equitable way to be, even by stealing from the company. Even we do it, where I will feel pissed off if I've overdone it with work, and then I'll steal a little bit of that time back to try to rebalance it. Employees do it. They'll even steal, supplies from the supply desk or the supply closet to find a way to balance things out. So I think we have an
Mhm.
internal sense, but what I'm learning, and I'm really being exposed to a lot of new ideas, this 4,000 weeks in particular, I like it because the historical
Yeah.
aspects of how has work changed in an industrialized world. It's very, very different than preceding chapters of human existence, where we were more governed by, the seasons or the rising and setting of the sun, or just
Hmm.
the normal agrarian lifestyle of a farmer. Now we're like,
Hmm.
we're in a whole other world now, and it's becoming increasingly inhumane. But
Hmm.
the cost that you're talking about, I want to bring it back to what you were saying. The
Hmm.
cost of a leader who is drowning is
Yeah.
is a team who goes back to habit. So there's a lot of studies that under duress, most people will go to the first way they learned how to do something, whatever habit they were taught originally,
Yeah.
how to handle a crisis, how to handle a client, how to do their work or whatever. They'll default
Hmm.
back to that under duress. And when the leader taps out, it creates a lot of anxiety in an organization. So, I mean, we can talk about
Yeah.
this all day long. I mean, what are all the symptoms of this? They're
Hmm.
everything everyone's listening to. The folks who are listening to this podcast either know or they've figured it out. And if they have any relationship to it, they know exactly what we're talking about. We don't need to beat them
Yep.
over the head. I'm doing a good job of that. But I can't believe how our world works. I mean, even my wife, it's like the stuff that comes from the school. It's like, I don't know who they think that she is, but it's not like 1950s where she's home smoking a Virginia Slim and having a martini, doing nothing but make brownies. Like, why do they send 6 emails and they're all coming about different things? And like, what do they think we're doing over here? They're teachers. They have no
Yeah.
idea what real life. I mean, not to say I disrespect teachers, I
Yeah.
actually rather like teachers, but
Hmm.
I don't think they know what it's really like in this firefight of, the economy.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
so absurd to me. It's so hard on the American public, and it is a big danger for this huge
Yeah.
class of small business owners.
It
What
is.
I see that works, and what we're helping them with is the kind of
Yeah.
stuff you're addressing.
Hmm.
Team health is crucial. It doesn't
Yeah.
seem like the quick solution. And when things get off the trail or off the rails, so to speak, it can often compound problems. And
Yeah.
so, real organizational clarity, starting at like, what are we doing, all the way down to how do we do it, is an
Yeah.
essential piece of it. It doesn't solve all of it. It's the piece that we took on because we said, if we can ensure or at least eradicate variability in how things get done,
Hmm.
even if it's the old way, it'll at least be consistent. We can leave
Yep.
some space for the entrepreneur to find some innovation or to
Yeah.
tease it out of the field, but at least we can be consistent and then
Consistency.
get a little bit of time freedom back and see the
Yeah.
machine. But there's so many dimensions to this. I think the
Totally.
first one is just what I was talking about in the beginning, and you're kind of teasing it out, so I want you to speak to it. I'm literally just telling people, what would happen if you stopped trying so hard?
Yeah. You've said that 3 times now, I think.
It's just so it's I say
It's
that, I feel like I'm
and
saying something sacrilegious. It's like I'm not supposed to say that, but what if you just didn't try so hard?
I've been asked that more times in my life than I can probably count too. Like, what
Mhm.
if? And it's something, yeah, like we should be asking
Or at
as
least
the other
invite the
visionary.
creativity to have the same standards without trying so hard. That's really what I mean. I don't mean,
Yeah,
what
yeah,
if you
yeah, yeah,
delivered lowered quality work? That's not what I said. I just said, what if you didn't
yeah.
try so hard?
Try so
What if
hard.
it was impossible for you to put the cherry on top client work? What would have to happen? And all of a sudden, I believe you're creative, you're an entrepreneur. You'd get
Hmm.
creative and you'd start
Hmm.
thinking about avenues and angles. What if I made it impossible? And you see this happen with entrepreneurs who have tragedy in their lives. They figure
Yeah.
it out because they have to. And entrepreneurs
Hmm.
gotta find a way. So their wife is sick, their kid is sick, they've got some kind of an issue that keeps them out of the office. It's
Hmm.
wild how creative they suddenly get.
Yeah.
I believe,
And
I've
if,
hope, because I've seen it happen.
yeah.
It was not under ideal circumstances, but I think electively you could pursue avenues of creativity. We did it with knowledge transfers into a software, a how-to
Right.
manual that's there when you're not, so that you don't have to answer those
Mm-hmm.
questions and you can standardize. But there are
Mm-hmm.
lots of areas. I mean, look at the talent and recruiting stuff, the work that you do. You're looking
Mm-hmm.
at you look at every department now.
Yeah.
You're all over the business now, optimizing and tweaking.
Right.
And I think I'd like to hear from you when I talk about this. It resonates. My piece is that. What's your piece? Like, I think I want you to tell me specifically as it pertains to this crisis, where
Mm-hmm.
is your business helping with that?
Yeah.
Can you nail that?
Yeah. I mean, it's all in people, the expertise of a leadership team
Hmm.
when
It
so
is.
many are trying so hard. What we see is trying so hard for the business to look a certain way or to fit a specific mold under this perception that like there's only one way from point A to point B. And hiring and
Yes.
filling leadership teams is the burden and the stress and the hard work that truly goes into that has them feeling limited by it having to look a certain way. And we provide a model and a system as a, I'm kind of moving into this realm of seeing it as like a leadership team as a service. Like if you
Whoa.
could see
Whoa, that's interesting.
leadership as a service, we have a cure. Like we have a cure to how overwhelmed, burnt out, and inundated you are in your business right now without a leadership team to actually execute and move forward to scale it to this next level, to this higher caliber. You may have people there and maybe they just need a reinforcement and coaching and guidance because that can't solely fall on you. What is the infrastructure and health within the team to
Yeah.
elevate those leaders to the next level without, the burden of completely alleviating the entire team and starting from scratch again, right? It's there's a bridge there that we fit, and seeing the leadership team as a cure and a service that we can provide, there's just so much flexibility, I think, with how we can get from point A to point B to relieve that valve, to release and create and come in to build the infrastructure and the strength as a foundation that is a quick win. Like we provide
What's the
this is how we
obstacle?
come in.
Where's the obstacle for your client? Like your visionary is listening and saying, "Good God, that sounds
Mhm.
good." What's the obstacle they would like report about why?
Yeah, I think the obstacle is, I
This
mean,
is
we
pretty
serve
awesome.
fractionally. Yeah, we serve fractionally, which I wanting more and more to get away from that word in general because I think they're hung up. We're hung up on the time. How much of your time am I getting for the dollars that I'm spending, as opposed to looking at this as a value service?
An outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want to talk about the outcomes. Here's
yeah,
where we're going to be.
yeah. That's
Here's
a
what 6 months from now looks like. Do
yeah.
you want that? Like here are all the other businesses we've been able to do this with.
I was
They're
gonna say
caught
that's a.
up.
It's just the social proof, probably. They just need to
It
see it's
is.
real. It's
Yeah,
just they
and
need
to
to see
talk
it's
through
real.
it because their friction point is definitely this mindset and this evolution of work, right? That entails like, oh, I need a COO. I have to post the role, the job ad. We go through hiring process, recruiting,
Yep.
and we bring somebody on full time. I'm investing, we're interviewing, they're treating it like an interview process. There
Yeah.
is a blend there. Obviously, it has to be the right fit for that organization, the right fit for that team, culture, all of those things. But when you view it as this from the standpoint of a
That's
value add as a service,
interesting.
then that's where that transformation comes in.
That's pretty innovative. I appreciate that, and
Yeah.
it's an idea with it's that's come of age. It's a compelling value proposition because
Hmm.
oftentimes, and I see this, leadership has been sort of cobbled together from people without any leadership experience.
Yeah.
God bless them. They know the business probably pretty well and they do work
Right.
hard and they're diligent, but they don't actually
Hmm.
know what they're doing. And I think the pressure is very hard on many of them.
Hmm.
Homegrown is just they suffer sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. Heart's in the right,
Yep.
but a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Well, yeah, thank you. Thanks
Yeah. It's really cool.
for questions of me too.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
makes
I'm
it fun.
practicing. Yeah. A little podcast time for me. I think we should just keep going like Joe Rogan. We'll have like a 3 hour jam.
Yeah.
It's such a fun
Bring in
topic.
some
Yeah.
surprise
Yeah.
guests. Like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's call him up. Yeah, let's call her in. Like, we need to bring him in.
Right. We should
Yeah.
drink. No, I think that the topic is really rich
Yeah.
and it really, it's interesting because you are so empathic.
Mm.
And it's funny, I got this advice from a client that really cared about me once. And he said something that I think really hit me like a two by four. He said, well, sometimes your greatest weakness is the overuse of your greatest strengths. And I was like, oh, never thought about that. Never thought
Yeah.
about it. But I fell victim to that.
Yeah.
And that empathy in you is so evident in the way you understand this problem. It
Hmm.
just it's you have to get results through other people at this stage in your career,
Yeah.
right? And that's the thing for a lot of the entrepreneurs. It's like, I cultivated this gift. I love it. I get so much joy from it. I'm really, really good at it. When people work with me, I blow them right out of their socks. But as a business model, that means I don't get to be free on the weekends. Good
Mm.
idea, bad idea. How do I
Right.
think that through? Because
Yep.
if I can't make a
Exactly.
living, then I have to go back to doing it myself. But
Hmm.
like what you've done, I think is really, I mean, I just see this stable of professionals you've, attracted.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I bet you'd say this. I'm not going to put you on the spot overtly, but some of them are probably better at some of the stuff than you are. And that's pretty neat, I bet. Just to know you're
Hmm.
giving these clients of yours, these incredible professionals to work
Hmm.
with. That's pretty neat. That's got
Yeah.
to be liberating.
It's a
Is that
gift. Yeah, I
yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
it's a gift. And
Yeah.
so, and it's the reward, right? But
Yeah.
and it's all that balancing of strength. Sometimes our strengths, we're told, like lean into your strengths, just focus on your strengths. And
It's
that
funny.
can,
There's a lot of
yeah.
crappy advice out there that everyone goes, yeah, try your
I
heart.
think a lot of my strengths are why I'm constantly like in trouble.
I,
Actually, I'm
I get
like,
it.
oh, I don't even though I'm here. Here's the thing, bringing it full circle to like, don't try so hard, right? Or if we try to,
If you make that the
no,
like headline for this podcast, I'm gonna be so pissed off at you. John Laduca, don't try
I
so
am.
hard.
Just try less. Yeah.
The
Because
lazy
the
guy. Yeah. You'll find me on the couch. I'm available for your
well,
calls once in a while. Yeah.
I might I might answer. I might not. No,
Right.
the truth
Big
is though,
emails.
like your your strengths, you don't have to try that hard on. You don't have to try hard at those,
Ooh.
right? They're already strengths.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, responsibility, like, is one of my empath responsibility. Sometimes they are the very things that I'm like, I have to kind of tamper those down sometimes. Like, don't lean into those so hard because
So
they
counterintuitive.
it is. It's counterintuitive. Like, oh, lean into where you're strong. It's like you don't even have to. They're innate in who we are. So
Yeah, I wonder how this
if
sounds
they,
to your listeners right now. If they're just like, what? How am I going to do that? I just know something that is
yeah.
true. I mean, my clientele were 10-figure income earners.
Mm-hmm.
And and I remember being told really smart people are not always the best business owners. Sometimes it's
No.
the student. So what is going on with the C student? They're letting other people lead. They're bringing in specialists because they know they don't have capabilities in a variety of areas in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not killing themselves, so they're remaining objective. Like it's
And
a hack. It's a
it is.
legitimate position to take on this
It is.
thing
It
when
is.
we certainly know that the alternative doesn't necessarily pay dividends.
No.
It's
And the perfection or the control, this illusion that doing it perfect is a necessity, is an illusion.
listen
The
to me. You're good enough.
oh, thank you.
I mean, you know
Don't make
this.
me cry.
You can see it from all the evidence in your world, right? Like you
Mm,
can see it. Look at what you've done. Look at your babies, your beautiful husband, your beautiful business, the happy clients. Like it's not an easy thing you've
mm.
done. Yeah, I'm not trying to make you cry, but like you just need to hear it. Yeah, we all
Oh,
do.
thank you.
But really that will compel you into those crazy behaviors.
It
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
It
And
will.
it isn't going to be how hard you try. You just
Yeah.
are. It's not your deeds. It's just who
Mm,
you are. So you don't have to try any harder. You'll still be great, even if you're in your socks on the couch watching Netflix. You're still great.
oh, thank
It's
you.
it's not for nothing that
Mm-hmm.
you're building something that's giving people permission to be human at work.
Yeah,
That's because it's your lesson.
right.
Yeah.
And
So
may
you're doing it.
everyone
You're doing
manifest
it.
that. Oh, you're
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you.
It's a big gift. Yeah, I'm not amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just stating a really obvious thing. I mean, anybody that's listening to this probably already likes you and already recognizes you. You just have to be the first fan in the fan club. But yeah, I mean, we all do it. We
Seriously.
all have our hangups. We all have
Yep,
imposter syndrome on some level and all this crap that gets under our skin. And
totally.
God, it's so funny. You add for me, add a little fatigue onto that, and I become a classic shit show. I'm a neurotic mess if you push me. I
Oh,
do some
yeah.
14, 16-hour days and a couple of things go wrong. I'm
Oh,
like, get
yeah.
me a blankie. I'm under the desk. I mean,
Falling
it's
apart. Mm-hmm.
on the frontiers. And not to again raise Dan Sullivan's name again, but he has a funny expression like, isn't it weird when you haven't had free days, how stupid everybody gets? And I just
Yes.
love that.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
I love that. That was
yeah,
me yesterday feeling like
totally.
I need a free day because and then everything inundating me was like
You're just,
I
yeah, yeah,
you're all idiots. Like
yeah.
what are we doing? That is the natural reaction. I'm
I
like,
love it.
what?
I
Yeah,
love
that's
it.
so
Well,
true.
I think you're
Oh,
great for asking this question and candidly, and not to sound like an old fart, but at your age, like, think
mm,
of the runway you have to perfect. Just having this question means you're
mm,
ready for it. And just pursuing it is like a discipline that most folks don't even encounter until they're so much further down the road. So I just am optimistic about the wisdom you'll accumulate, asking questions like this, attracting people who
yeah,
want to talk about it with you, and looking to strike into. I mean, we are complete nomads. We don't have parents that could show us. I don't mean just you and me.
yeah,
I mean, our entire generation of people have
right,
no precedent looking backwards at our immediate predecessor. Like your great
right.
great grandfather, his life probably looked exactly like his dad.
Yep,
Like world wasn't changing that much.
right.
Now it's like, oh, I will teleport to work. Like shit's changing so
So
dramatically.
fast.
We
Yeah,
don't get to benefit from a lot of like preceding behaviors of work or expectations around the kind of work. Like we are
yeah.
pioneering. And so for you to embark on this
Mm-hmm.
one, I think is really an incredible contribution because I know it's not in the absence of
Mm,
practical outcomes for your clients. So I'm
right.
done flattering you and saying nice things, but I think it should be acknowledged that this is it. This is the landscape. It's not
Mm-hmm.
because you're not going to be successful for sending one more email. So you're starting to ask questions that have to be answered by modern entrepreneurs and small business owners. Like,
Right.
what are the right pathways? If my third grade
Mm-hmm.
teacher wasn't right, then what the hell am I supposed to be doing?
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be up to us to kind
To
of
figure that out.
to
Yeah.
help to figure it out and collect people who are further along than we are, or listen to people who are figuring it out, or try different things and fail at them. But I'm not quitting either
Mm.
because I
Yeah.
was sold like a bunch of John Hughes movies that somehow big nerds like me, we'd figure it out at the end of the movie. And I'm hoping I get the girl. I hope it works out because I did get the
Mm.
girl actually. But I hope that at the end of the story, my nonconformist approach pays dividends. It has to an extent so
Mm-hmm.
far, but I realize, boy, it's a
Yeah,
treacherous
it
time.
is.
Yeah.
It
Thank
is.
you for having me as a
Oh,
guest.
thank
I
you,
love
John.
spending time.
Thank you so much. I love
Yeah,
it
my
too.
pleasure.
Where can our guests learn more about your incredible work and
I will
find
be
you?
laying down at a bar close to the beach. You know?
On the beach somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm on social media. I'm specifically LinkedIn, and then
Mm,
playbookbuilder.com is cheater software. It's AI powered learning software that does half the populating of SOPs and processes for the
yeah.
clients so that they can get a quick leg up and they don't have to just pull their hair out in clumps. And so playbookbuilder.com is where they can learn more about what we're up to. And
Yep.
thanks for
It's a
having
great
me
tool.
again. I love chatting with you, and this was a good topic.
Likewise.
Yeah,
I
glad
know.
you're doing
Always
it.
fun.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thanks
My
everyone
pleasure.
for listening.